Hello, everybody. This is John Wittry.
Hi, I'm Donna Wittry.
Good to have you back. This is the second in our series of top 10 big ideas on having a fantastic relationship. If you remember in the first video, we talked about top 10 ideas that we're going to cover over the course of the next 10 months. And today we are going to dive into the first big idea, and we actually have top 10 big ideas for this idea. So the first thing that we're going to go through today is choose in every day. How do you actually choose in to your relationship every day? So wherever you are in your current marriage or in your current relationship, how do you participate fully in that relationship to take it from good to great, to recover from where you might find yourself at right now? But really, how do you make it a purposeful choosing in every single day? So without further ado, let's get started.
All right, so our first top 10 is commit to your marriage no matter how you feel. So there are certain days when our feelings change, and there may be certain times when you have resentment, you have anger that gets built up, and you just are questioning yourself as to whether or not you really are in this for the long haul. And what I have found just over the years is that I know that my feelings are fickle, and as long as I recognize that, I can really understand that even though I may not be feeling, super loving or, really committed on a particular day, I know that that feeling is going to pass. It could pass in a day, it could pass maybe in a few days, but I know eventually that that feeling is going to change as all my feelings are constantly changing. And so if I can just realize that and know that I will get past that certain feeling, then I know that my relationship will continue.
Yeah, it's interesting not letting our feelings rule our relationship. And certainly in our 29 years of being married, there have been times when I have let my feelings rule. And what I find is then my relationship gets on a roller coaster. So when I feel great, I'm really high and we're doing really well. But when my feelings are low or I'm in a low mood, all of a sudden my relationship isn't good, or it's not everything that I wanted to be. And so, those feelings are true. You can't ignore them. But how do you discipline yourself, or how do you be in control so that your feelings don't drive your actions, so you don't take actions from those feelings? So when I feel bad, I quit. When I feel bad, I'm not loving. When I feel bad, I'm not caring, kind, and considerate. It's actually just the opposite. Interestingly enough, if you don't let your feelings rule you, you almost take the converse of how you're feeling. When I feel bad, one of the quickest ways out of feeling bad is to serve Donna. It's not what I want to do because I feel bad. But the reality is, if I will have control, self-control, recognize that I'm in a low mood, and then act converse to that mood. Be loving, be kind. Pretty soon you're taking actions that are changing that feeling. That's how fickle feelings are. So too many people wrap their relationship around, I don't feel in love. Yeah, well, welcome to the club. How many of us 100% of the time feel in love? We don't. Feelings aren't the basis for the relationship. So choosing in and really committing to that relationship no matter how you feel is absolutely critical.
It is. All right.
Let's do number 2.
Number 2, be actively engaged in creating what you want. So in my own life, I find that I can take charge of the things that I want to be control of in my own person. I am fully responsible for the way I feel, the way I react in the world, the actions that I take in the world. And so making that very real for me was really important in our 29-year marriage, is to say, no matter what's going on in the outside, I can still control how I feel and how my reaction is in our relationship. And so just knowing that if I continue on a vein where I'm, hurt or angry with John, at any moment I can decide in my mind, no, I'm going to stop that right now. And I'm going to go ahead and say to myself, just be loving. Just change your attitude right this moment and go ahead and be loving with your husband, and that changes my actions and changes my attitude through my relationship.
I know you all probably find it really hard to believe that she could ever be hurt or angry by me, right? I know you're all just thinking that. How can that be? No, I say that facetiously. I mean, we all piss each other off at some level, at some form. I mean, it just happens. I like the title of this top 10. So be actively engaged in creating what you want. One of the things in our work with couples or people just trying to have great relationship in any form or fashion is how passive they are. And really understanding that you have a responsibility to create what it is that you want. If you want a loving, kind, caring relationship, then you actually have to create that. That's typically not going to happen if you're in a passive stance. So how do you consistently in your relationships move into a creative stance and do those things that show that you're actually engaged in this relationship and that you're actually creating it to occur the way you want it to be? One other thing that I would like to add in this particular one is being accountable. Really interesting thing, all of a sudden we're talking about relationships and moving into accountability. If the relationship isn't occurring the way you want, then the best thing that you can do is own your part in that. That you can take accountability that you aren't doing the things, or you haven't been creative enough to actually drive the relationship that you want. So if you find yourself being a victim in any of this, in relationship at all, really take a look at how are you actively engaged in creating that relationship.
Yeah, like John said, a lot of times I think we find that if couples get into blame, it's because they're being passive in their own actions. They're waiting for their spouse to be the loving one, or waiting for their spouse to be the one that reaches out after a fight, to solve the situation. Whereas when you're taking responsibility, you're the one that is stepping up and saying, okay, we had a fight. Can we solve this? Honey, can we talk now? Those kinds of things, stepping up.
Yeah, so tip number 2 or the thing that you can be doing is be actively engaged in creating that relationship that you want.
All right.
How about number 3?
Number 3, show enthusiasm for your spouse or in your relationship for the things that matter to them, not just the things that matter to you.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to tell a story to explain this one. This is a real story from Donna and I's relationship. So my wife's been a horseback rider for many, many years. I've been around horses most of my life, but for 5 or 6 years, she would go out to the ranch on the weekend where we were boarding the horses, and I would go golfing. So that didn't work out so well. We're spending 5 or 6 hours a day away from each other, and that has an impact. And because I travel so much, I'm not home during the week either. So one of the things that I learned how to do was show enthusiasm for Donna's horseback riding. So instead of going to play golf, I would actually go hike. I wasn't quite ready to ride yet, but I would go hike with her. So I would hang out in the barn with her while she was getting the horses tacked, and then I would hike with her. And
listen to my stories.
I would listen to her horse stories, yeah, which go on forever, which is amazing. But so that was me showing enthusiasm for something that Donna cared about. I didn't care about horses at that point, and it was nice to hike. But what was interesting about me making an effort to show enthusiasm about something Donna cared about was pretty soon I started caring about it. So pretty soon I got interested in horses, and fast forward 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years later, we actually have horses. That's our unifying goal. We have 2 horses on our property, and it's something we do together. So it started out me showing enthusiasm for something Donna really loved, and pretty soon it became a passion for both of us, and it became something that drew us together. So conversely, and I'll tell a little story on Donna. Donna has been stellar in our 29 years of marriage of showing enthusiasm for my work. Look, she's not that interested in what I do for a living or what occurs day to day at a level, right? She cares about me, so she does at a level. But she's always shown enthusiasm. Hey, John, how did it go? How did it go with this client? What was that coaching scenario like? What was that retreat like, etc.? And I felt loved, like she cared. She was showing enthusiasm for something I cared about, even though really it wasn't big on her list. Does that make sense? Am I telling a story?
Yeah,
or is that true?
That's true. It's just showing that you care about what the other person is interested in.
It's funny because the fundamental concept with this one, so show enthusiasm for who you're in relationship with and the things that matter to them, that requires that you lay your will down. Right? So let me say that again. one of the things about choosing in every day and showing enthusiasm for what your partner cares about is laying your own will down. Not always having it to have to be about you, but really letting it be about them. So the challenge that I'd have for you in this particular big idea would be to look at who you're in relationship, what do they really care about, and how are you supporting that enthusiastically? Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go on to number 4.
Number 4. Make fun plans together for the near and the far future. These are the shared experiences that you have as a couple that no one else will have, because they're just your own. They're your personal memories, and they're really things that can connect you on a deep core level that no other relationship will have those memories, no other relationship will have those photos, no other relationship will have the plans that you have put into making that, and also just the fun, adventurous, talking and sharing that you can do either before you're making the plans, during, while you're having the fun plans, or even the stories that you'll be telling after the plans are done. Those are just really key connectivities that happen in a relationship that cause you to be closer. And so I really feel like it's important in every relationship to keep on making fun plans and keep on planning fun things for the future, and keep on that's one way to continue the excitement in the relationship.
I love listening to you use the word fun so much because we want them to be fun, right? I mean, the intention is that this stuff's fun. So I really look at this in 3 ways. So when you make fun plans together for the near and far future, there's 3 stages. There's the anticipation of the event. So you're working together to do the planning and to choose where you're going to go and what you're going to do. So that anticipation is exciting. It forces you or causes you to work together, come into alignment on what it is that you're going to do. Then there's the event itself. So that's full of all its own experiences, some good, some bad, right? So in almost every vacation or event that we've done, there's some hardship that we have to work through. I don't mind that. I like scenarios that cause us to have to work through things because it makes us stronger every single time we do it. We get better and better at it all the time. So you have the anticipation of the event and the planning that goes with that. You actually have the fun in the event, but then you have the memories after the event. And one of the fun things that we like to do together and we like to do with our 2 kids is look at pictures. Because the pictures go all the way back to when the kids were babies, and we tell stories and we laugh, we share experiences. Our kids, we share some of the hardships that we went through in the event with our children, so they learn from that event. So really making sure that you're constantly looking for what are we doing in the near future, what are we doing in the far future, has you constantly working on your relationship. You almost can't not work on your relationship in those scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, number 5.
All right, number 5. Clean up your misunderstandings, your anger, and your resentment very quickly. So the longer it goes on, what we found in our years of being married is the longer that the anger and resentment is hiding in your heart, and the longer that you're not expressing your feelings and getting it on the table and getting it in a nice, clean, neutral discussion together, the longer it festers, the worse it can be on the relationship. And just if you let it go days, weeks, months, I think that's where people run into problems the most, is because they haven't handled it, within a timely period of time to get the thing resolved, and then all of a sudden you're adding to it by other things that are happening, and then all of a sudden a month goes by and you haven't really spoken from a heart level, or 2 months go by or 3 months go by, and all of a sudden you have missed a connection in your heart, and you have this anger and resentment that's still festering in there. And sometimes we've seen situations where people have, they have the hardest time getting over things because they've let it stay there for so long.
Yeah, and look, this one takes practice. There's just no doubt about it. Again, I'm telling a lot of stories about our own relationship. I hope that's helpful to you. But in the early parts of our marriage, these resentments, the anger, the bitterness, the misunderstandings could go on for months. Donna and I have very different ways of fighting. So, oh yeah, when we do fight, by the way, you should know that. Donna's tendency is to get really quiet and withdrawn. So she's can be a little bit of an introvert, and so she pulls away. Conversely, I go forward. So fight or flight, right? So I'm in it. I want to talk about it. Let's get through it right now. We, over the course of our years, well, that didn't work for either of us. The worst thing you can do with me, my personality, is pull away. The worst thing you can do with Donna's personality is attack. And so that was really challenging in the first part of our relationship. And so we, over the course of time, have had to learn to adjust. I've had to come Donna's way.
You know, we've come from these opposite directions to try and learn together how to be a little bit, you know, more soft with each other.
Yeah, so Donna will get into the conversation faster, so she'll stop pulling away and she'll move into the conversation, and I slow down. Like, just give her space, let her go. And that's worked. That's taken a 3-month misunderstanding or disagreement or bitterness and moved it into literally minutes. And I know that might sound like an exaggeration, but we're fortunate. We're to a place in our relationship now where our disagreements last minutes. And that's even long sometimes, because we're just constantly handling things, mostly because we're kind to each other and we're respectful of each other, even in that disagreement. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine how wonderful it would be to not have that seed of bitterness, that seed of anger, that seed of resentment filter into every other conversation that you have? It's so important to clean up misunderstandings quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's taken practice, many years of practice.
The next one actually ties into it.
Number 6. So we always encourage people to say, "Will you forgive me?" often.
Will you forgive me? So will you...
Different than saying, "I'm sorry."
Yeah. So imagine if Donna does something to offend me and she says, "I'm sorry," there's no response required of me. I get to move away without saying anything. And conversely, if Donna says, "Will you forgive me?" now I have a choice, right? I have a choice to say, "Yes, I do," and we can move on, or "No,
yeah, I'm not ready right now," or "Give me a little while to think about this. I don't feel ready yet."
Which just means, and the thing that's really important, when the other person isn't ready yet, you, at least by saying, "Will you forgive me?" you've kept the conversation open. It's still a conversation. They've said, "I'm not ready yet." It doesn't mean I never want to talk to you again, or it's just silent. "I'm just not ready yet." Great. So I stand back and I say, "Great, you let me know when you are. Mm-hmm. I would love you to forgive me, and I get that you're not ready yet. You let me know when you'd like to talk about this again." And so really, really important to have that distinction between "I'm sorry," which lands really flat, and "Will you forgive me?" The other thing that's interesting about "Will you forgive me?" is it's really humbling. Mm. It's really humbling to ask for forgiveness. And you want to take this a step farther. It's really humbling to ask for forgiveness for something you don't think is your fault. And to be honest with you, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. All that matters is that you move back into conversation and communication. And the best way to do that is to ask for forgiveness for everything.
Yeah, it just diffuses the whole situation. If you just say, whether you think you're right or wrong, if you just say, "Honey, will you forgive me for whatever my part was in this?" You don't really always see your own part in the whole situation, but just saying, "Honey, will you forgive me for whatever my part is in this?" You know, it just diffuses the whole situation and creates an openness in your partner to be able to talk and be in conversation again.
Yeah, so again, I mean, all of these are important, but this is a really big one. This has been transformational, again, in our own marriage, in our own relationship. I had it easier. I have an easier time still today, I would say. I have an easier time asking for forgiveness, and you have
I have a harder time doing it, so it's taken me a lot of practice to get used to saying that.
Yeah, but it's really huge.
It's been transformational with our clients too, because I mean, everybody knows from the time you're a kid, you're taught, you know, well, when you do something wrong, say you're sorry. But this is taking it to another step. This is another step in that whole process of you know, taking the responsibility also onto yourself by saying, you know, "Will you forgive me?"
And for any of those of you with kids, a parent, an adult asking a child for forgiveness, that's also a whole nother level. Yeah. So when I finally got my head around asking for forgiveness of my kids, so I'd blow up on Lewis or I'd blow up on Chloe for no fault of theirs, just because I was a jerk that day. and going back into their bedroom amidst all their tears and sitting on their bed and asking for forgiveness. Talk about transforming a relationship with a child. That's a big one.
Yeah, it probably works in almost any relationship you could think of.
Next one.
All right, number 7. Do small, meaningful gestures for the other person every day.
Like that.
Yeah, it's really just, if you're sitting in a car together and you just reach over and you just start holding your partner's hand, or, you give them eye contact. That's, the small gestures are very meaningful. Just being kind, just being polite, all of those little things, giving a hug, all of those small things can make a really big difference in, your partner's day, in the overall flavor of the relationship, in the overall feeling that you generate in the relationship. A hug to connect you just on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how when we're living together for a long period of time in our relationships, we can sometimes just start acting like roommates. And, we're not roommates. We're partners, we're lovers, we're friends, we're connected for life. And I don't want to treat my husband like he's my roommate. I want to treat him like he's my lover. And I want to give him the physical attention and, let him know that he is my favorite person to be with and he is my lover.
Yeah, at some point in this series, we're going to talk about love languages and how to speak other people's love languages. So one small piece that I'll add to this, do small, meaningful gestures for the other person every day, is I try to make those gestures wrap around Donna's love language, which is actually service. So for me, if I'll clean up my mess, I'll do my own dishes, I'll take out the garbage, I'll do the laundry, I'll make my bed, whatever those things are that actually really are meaningful to her, they're small. But if I can speak those small gestures in her love language, that goes a long way. I think text messaging is a small gesture. I wouldn't make that your dominant gesture, but even small things like that, or sending a really kind email or something like that. There's a myriad of different things that you can do to express love in small gestures consistently every single day, 10 times a day.
Yeah, definitely. All right, number 8. Keep your beliefs, thoughts, and actions positive towards your spouse. So we really feel like the result of our actions start in our thoughts, and then it translates into our beliefs, which really translates into our actions. So what we feel is that if we are concentrating on the negative aspects of our spouse every day, we're putting a microscope on the negative aspects of our spouse every day, those are the things that are going to be in your mind, and they're going to cause negativity. And if you're constantly thinking negative things about your spouse, you're eventually going to act on those things. You're going to pull away. You're not going to be as loving. You're not going to want to reach out to them because you've been thinking about and putting the microscope on, oh my gosh, they didn't do this, or they didn't do this, or there's things that, I wanted them to do this, but they didn't do it. And so you're constantly having that in your mind instead of turning your attitude and your thoughts to what are the things they are doing really well? What are their strengths? Not just what are their weaknesses, but, oh my gosh, my husband did this for me today, or my wife did this for me, or, they called me, or you're concentrating on the things that are really positive. And that'll lead to your actions being more loving towards your spouse every day if you keep your thoughts along the lines of being positive.
One of the things that we do with our clients in this area is I will give them a magnifying glass, and we want them to take it and have it for the rest of their life, because it's just a symbol of we all choose to pull out a magnifying glass in our lives, and we have the opportunity to either put the magnifying glass on the positive things about the person we're in a relationship with, or the negative things. And as you know, anything that you put the magnifying glass on looms larger than life. And so it's a choice. You can choose to put the positive thoughts, but put your thoughts on the positive things of your person you're in a relationship with, or the negative things. It's just a choice. Just know that those thoughts are going to create your actions, and they're going to create your results. This actually ties into the homework. So this is a really important one. You're going to get to work on this for actually the next month.
Okay. So number 9 is be in constant loving communication. So this is what we like to call, I don't know, you could call it, a daily recap, a daily download, the time that you spend together as a couple on a daily, weekly basis. And And just being able to share your thoughts and your feelings, your fears, things that bring joy, things that you're struggling with, and just being in constant loving communication to share your heart with your spouse every single day. And that really will generate a continued closeness in your relationship.
Yeah, this is another one that takes a big amount of practice. We've written a blog on a thing called 2 chairs. We have 2 chairs we have 2 chairs all over our property right now, but we started out with 2 chairs early in our marriage. And the meaning of those 2 chairs was that was a safe place to be honest, authentic, share our feelings, let down, but it was a safe place. And so that was a really discipline for me, especially as a man. Sharing my feelings, sharing my heart didn't come naturally. But what I found is if I would just practice a little bit, it has become incredibly natural. And what it does is it allows us to be in loving communication even when stakes are high, even when there's problems. See, that's the difference, I think, in our relationship now, is even in the midst of turmoil, and we occasionally have turmoil, we still know how to be in loving communication in that turmoil. But that started with a practice, a discipline, long ago, 27 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's second nature. We don't even think about it. But it is something that's really, really important, is set up a safe area to be in that loving communication. And guys, if you have any adversity to sharing your feelings, call it something else. You do it at the bar. So you're doing it with other guys. It's a practice to do it with your spouse. So just a little bit there to the guys.
But it definitely builds trust.
Huge.
And it's also a really good practice to do when you're not in conflict. Because if you can get really good at communicating, having loving, neutral communication with each other while things are going really good, it bodes better for when things are not going really well, to just be able to continue along those same lines of being able to communicate when you're not feeling the love.
Great. Let's do the last one.
Right. Number 10, don't let divorce be an option. So, for me, it requires that basically when I said I do and I made my vows to John, I said to myself, there's no backup plan here. I am going to see this through. I'm responsible for this. The grass isn't greener on the other side. And I decided that I am going to stay married for life. And I really wanted to make this a commitment for myself, for my extended family, for my children. And so that's how I go into choosing in every single day, is I just say to myself, I'm not going to let any thought pattern come into my mind that tells me that there would be some reason that this couldn't work and that it might work better with somebody else. Because really in the long run, if it can't work here, then, I need to rethink how I'm doing things, because I should be able to make it work with the person that I made my commitment to originally.
Yeah, and we use the divorce as it relates to marriage a lot, and this is about relationships in general, but so you can transcribe the word divorce and use a back door. So what I would suggest on this one is make sure you don't have any back doors. Like when you go commit to somebody to be in a relationship with, whether it's your spouse, in your marriage, or your children, or your employees, employers, whatever that relationship looks like, be conscious if you have a back door. Like I love the word backup plan. If you have a backup plan, you're already presupposing this isn't going to work, and you're making decisions from that presupposition. So be really conscious about whether you have backup plans in place. What I would suggest is not have a backup plan, but have a recovery plan. So we have recovery plans. When we get in trouble, we know who to go talk to. When we can't figure something out between us, we have really good friends in California that we know we can go to anytime and say, hey, this is the mess, and we can't work our way out of the mess. We have coaches in our lives that help us straighten that thing out. So don't have a backup plan, but having recovery plans is really helpful. Mm-hmm. So that's the top 10 on choose in every day. Now, if you remember, if you go back to the first video, I said that I was going to give you homework. So I have homework for you today. So one of the things that I'd like you to consider, and I want you to make this a game, and I want you to test this. So there's going to be homework and there's going to be extra credit. For the next 30 days, what I would like you to do is state something similar to this intention at least once daily, ideally as many times a day as you can tolerate, and hopefully while you're looking at yourself in the mirror. So you're going to state this intention. Today, I choose into a committed, loving relationship with Donna. I align my thoughts and my actions to that outcome. I love the experience of being in a committed, loving relationship with Donna. So once a day at least for 30 days, looking at yourself in the mirror, ideally, state that intention over and over and over would be even better. See, what I'm doing is I'm using my words to change my thoughts. My thoughts will produce my actions will generate my results. So we're going to start by saying something that it might not even feel true, but if we say it enough, it changes our thinking, our actions, and our results. Extra credit. So you can do this in the relationship. The extra credit is to enroll the person that you're in relationship with to do the exact same thing. Okay? So I want to thank you. If you've made it to the end of this video, you're now 2 videos in. We've got 8 or 9 more to go. Thank you so much for making this effort to be in a committed, loving relationship. We really honor that.
It's really worth it. It's really worth it in the end. And that would be the encouraging word that I would like to leave with you, is it's so worth it. Even if you're having some trouble in the middle, whatever situation that you're in right now, it's so worth it to commit to the relationship, to your marriage. It's so worth it in the end. That, I can't even describe to you how worth it is in the end. After 29 years, it's been so worth it to stay married and to stay in good relationship and to have a great marriage. It's just very worth it.
Yep. Thank you much. See you next time.
Thank you.